Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Bryce. I've always believed that relationships were built on loyalty, on that quiet understanding that no matter what the world throws your way, your partner's got your back. But the day my wife defended her coworker instead of me, that's when I realized I didn't mean half as much to her as I thought I did. But before we get into that part, I need to take you back to where it all began. Back to when I met my wife. We met at a corporate event hosted by the company I worked for. The room was packed with professionals from all kinds of firms in our industry, a networking mixer, really, and Valeria happened to be there as a representative from a competing company. I can't tell you every little detail about that night, but I do remember seeing her. We talked briefly, and I made sure to ask for her number before we both walked out into the night. I didn't know what would come of it, but I knew I wanted to see her again. Our communication started lightly. Just the occasional "how's your day" or a meme here and there. But those texts became daily check-ins, and the tone shifted. It didn't take long before we were officially dating. We weren't just drawn to each other romantically, we connected intellectually. We could talk about our careers, the pressure of growth, and the expectations we faced as professionals in a competitive industry. We saw the world through a similar lens, and that made it feel like we were on the same team. Before we decided to tie the knot, we had a lot of deep conversations. We agreed that we'd delay having kids for a few years so we could focus on our careers without unnecessary pressure. We discussed timelines, personal goals, and even how we'd support each other's individual ambitions. We also mapped out how we'd run our household. Everything from how to handle chores to making sure neither of us would feel like we were carrying the load alone. We wanted balance. We were both career-driven, and it felt good knowing we were being honest and realistic about what that would require. When we got married, I felt like I had made the smartest decision of my life. I wasn't just marrying a beautiful woman. I was marrying someone who understood my rhythm, someone who had her own goals and respected mine. I honestly thought I was stepping into a future where two focused, motivated people could thrive side by side. At the time, everything felt aligned. I truly believed that nothing could go wrong, not with the way we had laid our foundation. The first few years of our marriage went just the way we planned. We managed the house smoothly, divided responsibilities based on who was less busy at the time, and actually had a great rhythm. We respected each other's space and time. And even though we were both chasing professional growth, we always found moments to reconnect. I thought that balance meant we'd set the right foundation for everything else. But then, when the time came to shift gears, to start a family like we had planned, Valeria started dragging her feet. One year, she said, "Let's just get through this fiscal year. I want to close out the targets I've set at work." I understood that. But then the next year came, and it was, "There's a regional role opening up. I want to give it a shot." Again, I supported her. I love my wife, and I try to be understanding, especially when it comes to ambitions. But I'm also not clueless. I know there's a biological timeline when it comes to having children. It's not about pressure, it's about reality. And 3 years in a row of delay after delay started to look less like a phase and more like avoidance. After that third year, I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. One evening, after dinner, I sat her down. I told her how I felt. I reminded her of the plans we made together and how I've waited patiently, trusting that when the time was right, we would start our family. But instead of acknowledging my feelings, she got defensive. She stood up, crossed her arms, and said something I'll never forget. "So I'm just supposed to put my career on hold because you want to be a daddy so badly?" I didn't even know how to respond to that. She went on to say she was this close to getting a major promotion, something she'd worked years for, and that I should be more supportive instead of trying to derail her progress. I just sat there, staring at her, realizing that this same promotion had been the reason for postponing everything for 3 years straight. It wasn't just a temporary detour anymore. This was the new normal, and I couldn't pretend I was okay with that. So I told her I wasn't happy with the way things were going, and that I felt like I was being pushed to the side. The conversation ended without a resolution. What she did next in the days that followed was worse. She emotionally checked out. There was no fight, no big shouting match. She just stopped trying. We stopped talking about our day like we used to. The warmth disappeared from our home. If I tried to initiate a conversation, she'd say she was tired or busy. If I suggested a weekend getaway, or even just a dinner together, she'd dismiss it like it was an inconvenience. Little by little, she distanced herself from me. Not physically, because we still shared the same bed, lived under the same roof. I didn't want to make any rash decisions. I didn't want to give up on something we had built with so much intention. At first, Valeria was just coming home a bit later than usual. She'd shoot me a quick text saying she was out with clients or working on a late project. I understood. We both had demanding careers, and sometimes work just spills into the night. That's the life we signed up for. I didn't complain. But with time, the text stopped. I'd sit in the living room, checking the time every few minutes, convincing myself she'd walk through the door any second. But when she finally did come home, there were no explanations. No, "Hey babe, sorry I'm late," or "Let me tell you how my day went." Nothing. She'd walk in like a stranger, straight to the bathroom to shower, then into her comfy clothes, and off to bed. And if I asked how her evening went, she'd either brush it off or say she was tired and didn't want to talk. Then came the night that made everything feel different. She walked through the door, as usual, heading straight for the bedroom. But as she passed me, I caught a strong whiff of alcohol on her breath. I stood up and asked calmly, "Valeria, were you drinking?" She immediately got edgy, like a switch had flipped. "So what if I had a few drinks with friends?" she snapped. "Am I not allowed to have a life now?" I only wanted honesty. But she was already defensive, like I was interrogating her. I asked her why she didn't tell me where she was or who she was with, and she looked at me like I was the problem. "What, are you my handler now?" she barked. She tried to push past me, but I gently held her arm just enough to stop her from walking off without saying another word. That was when she looked me dead in the eye and said something I never thought I'd hear from her. "If you don't let go of me right now, I'm calling the police for harassment." I froze. My hand let go before my brain even registered what was happening. She walked away and shut the bedroom door behind her like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I stood in the living room, trying to process what the hell just happened. I wasn't angry. That's when it became clear. I was no longer emotionally safe in my own home. After that night, she barely spoke to me. No greetings, no conversations, not even the basic courtesy of asking how my day went. But it wasn't just the silence. It was how she started doing things deliberately to push my buttons. Staying out even later. Sometimes, not coming home at all. It was like she was daring me to react. Testing how much I could take before breaking. And the worst part? I still tried to be patient. I still hoped that she'd snap out of whatever this was and come back to me. Weeks later, my company had been collaborating on a few projects with Valeria's firm, so they sent me to deliver a physical package to one of their department heads. Honestly, I thought it'd be nice to say a quick hello if she wasn't too busy. When I got to her office building, I walked up to the reception, signed in, and the receptionist, after confirming with the department lead's office, gave me directions. She even smiled and said, "You can head up." But as I was walking toward the office I was directed to, I passed by one of the employees. He looked familiar. I remembered Valeria had mentioned him once or twice during casual conversations back when things were still okay between us. As I walked past him, I heard him call me a simp. I froze mid-step, then turned around slowly. I asked him directly, "What did you just say?" He looked at me, all calm and casual, and acted like he hadn't said a thing. That fake innocence made my blood boil. He kept it smooth, trying to gaslight the moment as if I had imagined it. I stood there, staring him down. I wasn't going to cause a scene, but I also wasn't going to let this slide. The tension grew. I asked him again, this time firmer, "You sure you didn't say anything?" He shrugged, still playing innocent. And that was when Valeria showed up. I don't even know how she got there so fast. Probably someone had called her to say I was there. She walked into the hallway and asked, "What's going on?" I turned to her, expecting her to at least hear me out or even check her coworker. But instead, I got something else entirely. I told her exactly what happened. I even explained how I heard the comment, confronted him, and how he denied it. I expected her to be shocked, but she looked at me like I was the one causing a problem. She turned to him and asked, "Did you say that?" He shook his head. "No, I didn't." And without even giving me the benefit of doubt, she turned back to me and said, "He wouldn't lie about something like that." I swear I just stood there, speechless. My wife is just defending a coworker. You know, there are moments in life when you realize something's broken beyond repair. That moment was it for me. I didn't argue back. What was the point? I didn't raise my voice or cause a scene. I just turned around and walked away. I handed the package to the department head as instructed, told him to have a good day, and walked out of that building with a lump in my throat. I didn't even go back to the office. I went home, sat on the edge of the bed for almost an hour, just trying to understand how we got here. This woman had denied me a family after years of promises. She'd emotionally shut me out night after night, as if I were some stranger renting space in the same house. She came home smelling like alcohol, barely communicating, sometimes not coming home at all. And now, she publicly chose a coworker over me, right in front of everyone. I realized something very sobering. If I stayed another day in that marriage, I was just as much of a fool as she seemed to think I was. I agreed to this treatment. I was telling her and the universe that I accepted it. The day, I quietly booked an appointment with a divorce lawyer for the next day. The moment had come. She walked in later that evening, without even acknowledging how I was feeling or a hint of remorse for the mess we'd just gone through. She immediately attacked me. She went straight into this bizarre rant about how I embarrassed her at work. She said I had made her look bad. "You created a scene," she yelled. "You made me the joke of my office, Bryce." She went on like that for a while, ranting and accusing me of things. I couldn't even respond. It wasn't that I didn't know what to say. It was that I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just sat there in shock, trying to process the fact that she had turned the whole situation around and was making me feel like the villain. After what felt like an eternity of her yelling, she stormed off into the bedroom without even giving me a second glance. As I look back on everything, I realize just how much I had overlooked over the course of my marriage. After everything that went down, I took some time to investigate a few things. It didn't take long for me to find out that my wife's coworker had something more going on with my wife. My wife was more than just defending him. She was actively siding with him. It explained everything. But there was something I promised myself in that moment. I would get back at him. But that would have to come after I am free from this marriage. Now, as I share this, I want to leave you with a few important lessons that I've learned the hard way. These lessons may help you avoid the mistakes I made and save you a lot of heartache down the line. 1. Loyalty is not guaranteed in marriage. Watch for the signs early. We all go into relationships with the hope that the bond we share with our partner is unbreakable. But the truth is, loyalty isn't something that's guaranteed. It's something you have to work at, and sometimes you'll see signs that things aren't going the way you thought. It's easy to ignore the small red flags, but if you're noticing consistent signs that your partner isn't as invested as you are, that's a warning. Don't brush it off. I ignored the signs in my marriage, thinking it would get better, but in the end, it just got worse. 2. If you're the only one making sacrifices, the relationship is already unbalanced. Relationships are supposed to be about give and take. Both partners should be equally invested in making the relationship work, whether it's sacrificing time, energy, or making compromises. But if you're the only one making sacrifices and your partner isn't meeting you halfway, then the balance is off. You can only carry the weight of a relationship for so long before it starts to crush you. I realized too late that I had been the only one making sacrifices in my marriage, while my wife was too focused on her career to even see that I was giving everything to make things work. That imbalance led to a lot of resentment and, eventually, emotional detachment. 3. Silence in a relationship is louder than arguments. Emotional detachment is a red flag. When your partner stops communicating with you, when they start to emotionally detach, that's when you know something is seriously wrong. The lack of communication isn't about needing space. It's about withdrawal. And that's exactly what happened with my wife. She stopped talking to me, stopped caring about anything I had to say. And I knew that meant the end was near. 4. Never stay in a situation where you're constantly devalued. You don't have to beg for respect. I spent so many years trying to make my wife understand how much I valued her, how much I wanted this marriage to work. But no matter how much I tried, she just couldn't see me. And when she started disrespecting me, it became clear. No amount of begging for her attention or respect would ever change things. If you find yourself in a situation where you're constantly being devalued, where your worth is being overlooked, don't keep fighting for something that's already broken. Respect isn't something you should have to beg for, and if it's not being given to you, then it's time to walk away. So, as I close this chapter, I want to encourage anyone watching this video to reflect on their own relationships. If you're seeing any of the signs I mentioned here, emotional detachment, imbalances, lack of respect, don't ignore them. Relationships should make you feel valued, supported, and loved. If that's not happening, it might be time to rethink things. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What lessons have you learned from your own experiences? Are there any signs you wish you'd caught earlier? Share your thoughts, and let's talk about it. Don't forget to like and share this video to help others who might be going through similar struggles. You never know who might need to hear this today.